my loan off with the insurance company, it's a simple interest. So the more I pay back, the less my interest grows, but I still pay that same amount. So I'm actually making money in that policy. And I'm also earning, and I also have an asset now. After I pay that off, I own this car outright and I paid all the money back to my policy. It's kind of like a no-brainer, but people don't really get it sometimes. Yeah.
Welcome to the Next Level Income Show, where it's our goal to take your income, your investments, and your life to the next level. I'm your host, Chris Larson. If you haven't yet, get a copy of our book for free at our website, nextlevelincome.com. That's www.nextlevelincome.com. Just click on the book link, and I'll even send you a copy if you put your address in. On today's show, we have Jeff Ervick. Jeff is an accomplished real estate operator and investment relations maverick. He has successfully deployed over $40 million of equity into a $160 million portfolio of assets under management and development, consisting of multifamily, luxury single-family homes, ground-up development, and light and flex industrial properties. Jeff's LP and GP portfolio comprises over 1,800 doors under management and development. But more importantly, Jeff is a devoted family man who treasures quality moments with his amazing wife and business partner, Kim, and their three wonderful kids. Outside of running his businesses, his hobbies include boating, golfing, sharing his love for vintage cars and motorcycles, and inspiring young athletes as a coach for youth travel baseball. And today, Jeff's going to tell you his secrets for developing 7 streams of income that you can employ in the new year. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Hey, Chris, how you doing, man? Thanks for having me, bud.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. And yeah, we got a story like how we ended up here. Jeff and I are at this meeting in Florida, and he heard me talk, and he comes up to me afterward and he goes, I think he's like, I went to Virginia Tech too. We both were at the Pamplin School of Business, which is like I don't know if you can
Yep.
see it, Jeff. It's up there.
Oh,
Um,
nice. Yep.
and he tells me how he knew my sister, and then it turns out Jeff lives in the neighborhood I grew up in. And her papers, well, not to that house because I don't think it was there when I did it. And
Yeah.
and he's telling me today that his son walks to the same middle school that I went to. Like, what a crazy small world! How amazing is that?
It's amazing, man. Totally smart. I
Yeah,
love it. Yeah.
yeah.
And I'm drinking out of my mug right here that has our, the town that we live in, right? So
Serona Park, babe.
yeah, it's
Well,
awesome, man. It was great. It's good to meet you in person too, because I heard about you. And in fact, we have some friends, that went to school with you, high school.
yeah.
And so, when I looked you up, I was like, holy crap, right? And then I saw you in person. I'm like, this is too much of a coincidence. Like we have to meet.
Yeah,
So
no, it's awesome. And then the more we talk, I said, "Hey, Jeff, you got to go. You got a great story. You got some great resources. I'm really excited. We're going to talk to the audience. I developed to develop 7 streams of passive income, which I'll never forget reading Robert Allen's book, like multiple streams of income. Back at Virginia Tech, and saying, okay,
yeah.
this is everybody talks about Robert T. Jeff, but I think one of the big things that kind of gets over is like how all these streams. So we're going to dive into that. But before we do, share with the audience a little bit more about your background.
Yeah, so again, appreciate for having me on.
Yeah.
So I've been in technology sales for just over 2 years, right? So having a background in a high volume sales type world, I started out in a what called like a pit, right, where we're cold calling and setting
Yeah.
meetings and interviewing. I was in a staffing firm, so we were interviewing
Wow.
candidates and so forth. So
Yeah.
kind of learned from right out of college, right? Like, your hard work pays off, right? So
Yeah.
the harder you work, the faster you work, the smarter you work,
Yes.
the faster you get promoted, the more money you'll make and so forth, right? So
Yeah.
fast forward, I was at the company for about 12 years, left there and went to my current job. I'm still a W-2 employee for a tech. I sell technology solutions and cloud managed service solutions to the federal government, right? So I've got a really good solid background there. And through that, I've always been interested in real estate, right? So back in 2017, I met a couple buddies of mine, or met through a buddy of mine, one of my other friends, right? And he introduced me to the world of real estate meetups, and
Yeah.
a great way to kind of go in, learn local market, learn about what certain people are doing, get in the room, right? Rubbing elbows with the right people, right? And that's important, right? So from that, I said, you know what? I need to buy a rental property, right? I need to offset some income. I want to start earning some passive income. So, just like the TV shows back in the day, I went to a property, raised my hand. I was at a live auction in front of a property outside of
Yeah.
Baltimore in Baltimore County.
Oh
End
boy.
up win the yep,
Were
exactly, the
you
Dog
packing?
area, right?
You gotta
Yeah.
be, yeah, or have your running shoes on.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny is back then it was it was kind of a rough area. And
Oh yeah.
now it's gentrified. It's turned actually to be a very nice area, right? So
Yeah.
kind of bought before the market turned a little bit. But anyway, so
Yeah.
that was my first dab into real estate, and from then I was hooked, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I need to be able to buy more properties. I need to be able to, if I need to flip some, whatever it is, I just anything I need to do to get into real estate to be able to start earning passive income.
Yeah.
So I've been doing that since 2017. Fast forward, past couple years, I transitioned out of single family buys and buy and holds, which I still have those right in my own
Yeah.
portfolio. But I got into syndicating
Yeah.
and multifamily. Our core value add is our asset class we look at. We're also doing some ground up development work down in Florida and in Texas, and I also own a warehouse right outside of Charlotte. So
Yeah.
a couple of
Great
different
markets.
asset classes we focus on. Yeah, great markets. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's what I love too. So that's kind of been my story for the past couple of
Yeah.
years. Yeah.
No, thank you. And we'll kind of touch on each part of that. The first one is I think, I think everybody should be thrown into the sales world, Jeff, and like have to cold call or go door to door. Like the things
Yeah.
you learn in that experience are just amazing. Kind of going back, Robert Kiyosaki said, hey, sales is great because everybody's got to sell. You got to sell to build a business. You got to sell to, even if you think about like a date, like what's a date? Seinfeld says a date is nothing but an interview where you might end up naked at the end of the date, right? And I always used to tell my
Yep.
sales reps, I'm like, hey, like if you can't interview, you can't sell because an interview
Yeah.
is just a sales process where you're the product, where you're selling kind of your features and benefits. Um, we
Well,
were we
sorry,
were yes,
one
go
of the
ahead, yeah,
sorry to interrupt you there, but one of
yeah,
like the quintessential book that I read
yeah,
when I first started in the sales role,
yeah.
right back in the day was Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, right?
Fantastic book,
I
yeah,
think everybody should read that book, and
yeah,
it doesn't necessarily teach you how to sell, it teaches
yeah,
you how to build relationships. And I think that's the most important part in anything you do, whether it's
hmm
in your family, friends, in business, you always have to build relationships. And again, yes, you're always selling. What are you, either yourself or the dream of becoming wealthy for whatever it is you might be doing, right? And yeah,
Well, let me ask you a question. If you had to distill that book down into, one phrase or one um, sentence, how would you do that, Jeff?
I would say ask questions,
Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
listen.
Love
Right?
it.
Is
Yeah. Yeah.
nobody wants to like if you're trying to build that relationship with that person you're trying to either a make a sale with or become friends with or date, right? They don't
Yeah.
care about you, right? They don't want like
Yeah.
this situation you and I were talking because you we were having a good time. You want to hear about me? This is great. I get to talk about myself. But in
Yeah.
normal circumstances, I never talk about myself. I only ask questions and listen and start to
Yes.
learn about that person. So I'd say that's the most beneficial thing I learned from that book is actions and listen and learn, right?
That's fantastic. That's fantastic sales advice. And if you want to do a better job at selling, listen to people, find out what's truly important to that person, and then figure out how whatever you have, and it may not even be something you have. I think that's the most beautiful thing. I found that the best sales relationships I developed, Jeff, were when I was able to bring value that wasn't
Yeah,
even really directly related to the product I was selling. And those customers said, "Wait a minute, like you're doing something that your competitor isn't doing or can't do because you're providing this alternative value." And
sure.
ultimately getting that customer, getting that client more of what they want, which is probably, more money, more time with their family. What do they say if you want to sell something? Teach people how to make more money, have more sex. It's like, it's pretty simple stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah,
When you come down to it. And the other thing I think, I would add to that is that we have this saying, your network is your net worth. And, if you're always talking to people, you're trying to learn from people, you're listening to those people, you're developing those relationships with those people, that network that you have can ultimately, you can provide them value, they can provide you value. And I think that's really what, the world is about is having these relationships.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I mentioned, providing value to
Yeah.
whoever it is you're meeting with and talking with and hanging out
Yeah.
with,
Yeah.
and not always being about yourself. If you're about yourself all the
Absolutely.
time, then no one's gonna hang out with you, right? And no one's
Yeah.
gonna want to, be with you and work, work on that, right? So I think it's
Absolutely.
it's really, yes, adding value and establishing that personal relationship with
Yeah.
somebody for sure. Yeah,
Fantastic points. And we were talking before the show. We both got two boys, kind of
yeah,
teenage-ish boys. You're fortunate you have a daughter too. We settled on a female dog for my wife. So we said, okay, do we try for one more or
yeah,
not? You rolled the
yeah,
dice, we didn't. But we were talking about how similar our sons were in a sense.
yeah.
And one of those things was like this like persistence, right? Um, and I was about to talk to you about Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, and I think
Mm,
this is one of these other traits that I think can really help if you're in sales. It's Jordan Peterson talks about being agreeable versus
hmm.
disagreeable, and I want to highlight something because people hear disagreeable. That doesn't mean you can't be likable, but you were talking, and this is what popped into my head, Jeff. If you're working with a client and you say, "Hey, Chris, I know a better way. I know something that can help you do this. I don't want you to tell me to change. I don't want to change. But for you to help me, you have to basically disagree with me and help me change." Any tips that you can provide to the audience from all your years in sales about how to be disagreeable but still be likable at the same time?
Yeah, it's a fine line. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to frame the conversation,
Yeah.
right, in a certain way that the customer is getting what they want, but also, you're providing that to them
Yeah.
that is maybe better than what they're doing right now, right? So, for example,
Yeah.
if they're,
Yeah.
in the technology sales space, right? So, if
Yeah.
they're using a certain cyber tool, right, and we know that there's a better product out there,
Yeah.
but they really love this one tool that they're using. It's probably because they're currently interested. So you have to provide
Yeah.
that, the frame of reference of why this one might be a better value, what it can add to their toolbox, and not that we need to replace it, but maybe
Yeah.
we should just try it out and test it, right? And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
go through that trial period and
Yeah.
then see if that works out. Same thing with investing, right? So,
Yeah.
jumping in and putting $100,000 into a deal right away with that first time is probably scary for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
So test the waters, right? So maybe go in and do something smaller. Go on to there's a bunch of reggae things on that crowdsourcing, right? That you could put $5,000 in,
Reggae
right?
the music? No, no,
No,
regulation
no, no,
A.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, the crowdsourcing ones,
Yeah.
right? Where you
Crowd.
can
Yeah.
buy into
Smaller
a
investments. Yeah.
yeah, you can put $5,000 in, and then you can say, "Hey, that was my process. I'm learning. I'm starting to see what it's like, so forth." And then eventually, you build yourself up to where you can get into that,
Yeah.
larger investment deals if you're able to. So,
Yeah. No, I think that's fantastic. And you may have raised some eyebrows because the audience here is like, wow, Jeff is successful in real estate. He's also successful in tech sales. But you just
yeah,
said you've got a lot of different sources of income, and we're gonna
sure.
share with the audience today your ebook. We're gonna put it in the show notes, and you can share at the end here how the audience can get a copy of this, Jeff. But I want to walk through the 7 streams of income that you built because I think this is a really important lesson for people to
Yeah.
realize as we go through different points in the parts of the economic cycle. Certain assets do better than others, and a lot of people they say if you really put all of your eggs in one basket, you can perform really well. But what I've found
Mhm.
is those that I know that are truly financially successful, they've either had a successful career or business, and then they use that capital from that successful career or business to develop additional income streams. So let's talk about your journey from 1 to 7 streams of passive income.
Yeah, no, I appreciate bringing that up. I think it's definitely
Yeah,
something that can help out a lot of people because,
yeah,
in the traditional world, like what you were taught right from growing up is go to college, go get a job, work
yeah,
that job, invest in your 401k and retire, right?
yeah,
And we know that that's probably not the right way to go about it, right? And in fact, they don't teach you that, right? In pharmacy, which you know, is
Yeah.
the fact, I feel like they should have a next level course, right, of how to teach
Yeah.
people to earn multiple streams of income. So I did that, right?
Well, I do have a next level course. It's on my
Hey, well,
website, but
there you
yeah, but we
go.
got to get that. Yeah, we got to get that at the Virginia Tech, man. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, we should talk to the Pamplin School of Business and
There
I
we
was I
go.
was one of those advisors back then. Go see if we can do that. But
Yeah.
ultimately, yeah, building finding a way to be able to take your active income, right, and
Yeah.
that you can't leave that job, right? So a lot of people can't leave their job. It depends on for their family for benefits and
Mhm.
so forth. But
Yeah.
take excess income that you have, right, after you paid your bills, right, and put it into some type of moving portfolio, right? So I've
Love that.
gone from I got 401k, and then I also then have a stock portfolio. So that's kind of my second level, right? Is
All right. So
I use
excess
yeah,
income, and then put that into, an alternative investment, whether that's, the stock market or you said your 401k, which I'm not a huge fan
yeah,
of qualified plans, but I think one of the things is you probably get a company match with your plan, right?
yeah. Get so if you have a way to get to the match, so you know, what I would normally suggest for somebody would
Yeah.
be to, put it in your 401k up to your match, right? It's because it's free money,
Yeah.
right? So put
Okay.
it in there. Let's say your
Love
company
that.
matches percent, you
Yep.
put in 5%. That's a 10% that you're putting in every single year, right? And it
Yeah.
doesn't cost you too much, right? Because it's all
Yeah.
pre-tax as well too. And then
Yeah.
after you've set aside some cash, right? Put that into a money market account. So anyone having savings should always put it into something that's going to generate income, right? So it's going to generate income
Yeah.
a money market account.
Mhm.
And then I also have I work with a financial planner, right? And I put money into the stock market. So I actually do. What a lot of real estate people don't do is they're like, oh, I don't want to go into the stock market. Only want to do real estate. Well, kind of like I said, I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket because if all that real estate somehow, flips upside down like in 2008, then we're in an issue, right?
Yeah.
If I have a hedge, right, with some
Mhm.
stocks,
Yeah.
some bonds, money market accounts, I can kind of diversify inside of that portfolio,
Yeah.
right? So that's like my second level is taking my active income, putting it into another portfolio, hitting a threshold. And once I meet that threshold, then I keep filtering it down to level
Yeah.
two or level three, right?
I think that's fantastic. And we sit on one end of the spectrum, Jeff, where, investors ask me a lot of times, like, well, Chris, what percentage of your portfolio is in real estate? And I'm like, I'm not even going to tell you because you're going to, people are going to freak out when they hear the number. It's totally inverted compared to what most people have
Yeah.
because that's my primary business.
Yep.
But what I think is a great indicator is you look at how institutions, family offices, even endowments invest. They're putting like 20 to 30% of their investment portfolio in income producing real estate. So,
Yes.
if you're like Jeff and I, now I bought my first property actually at Virginia Tech there, back off of it was did I tell you it was right behind University City Boulevard behind the Starbucks over there on
Yeah, that's awesome
one
though.
of those
That's
little
amazing. I
townhouses.
always wanted
Yeah,
to buy a
yeah,
property when I was in college, but
yeah.
yeah.
But let's say you've been working, you're successful like Jeff, and you're in your 30s or 40s, and most of your wealth is tied up in the stock market. A great place to
Sure.
start is to consider putting some money into real estate. But I agree, like there's stock market's been on a tear the past year. There's a lot of people that spin around in our world and they're like, no, no, no stock market at all. But it does have its place.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's another
Yeah,
layer to that too that we
yeah,
can get into a little bit,
yeah.
right?
Let's
But
go.
it's if you pretty heavy stock portfolio,
Hmm.
right? And you work with a money manager, right?
Hmm.
Um, ultimately, you can create a second stream off of that money. You can arbitrage that money, right? So you let your stock portfolio grow, right? You
Yep.
add to it as you need to and let that grow, but you do what's called a securities backed loan, right? So you
Yep.
take a security loan off of that and you might charge, it might be like prime, so it might be like closer to 7%. But if you find something that pays more than that number,
Hmm.
right, then you can
Yep.
arbitrage it and you're making
Yep.
more money on that first dollar you
Yep.
put into the stock market. So you're making,
Yep.
let's just say 10% on that money in the stock market. You
Hmm.
take a securities backed loan that might charge like 7%, but you take it and you put it into like a 12% return of
Yep.
like a short-term loan, like private lending
Yep.
or hard money lending or something like that. Well, then you're making that spread. So you're making 5%
Yeah.
plus you're actually making 15% on that money,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
I think you might love this idea too, but being your own bank, right? So it's
Yeah.
basically kind of how can
Oh,
you be,
we're gonna. I can't. I was waiting for this one. So,
yeah,
yeah, we'll blend these two strategies together. So, yeah, like bank on yourself, family banking. When you say be your own
yeah.
bank, what do you mean by that, Jeff? I think I know what's coming up here, but are you a high income business owner or professional earning two, 300,000 or even more a year, but still feel like you're living paycheck to paycheck? Are you comfortable working until you're 65 or 70 to retire, or do you want to achieve financial independence and live life on your own terms? You could join myself and Matt Four and learn how we both became financially independent in our early 30s. We will teach you how to make, keep, and grow your money, teaching you strategies to maximize your earnings, keep your income that you've earned through tax strategy and legal structures, and ultimately teach you how to grow it by determining your personal investing strategy, as well as teach you how to analyze investments so you can grow your passive income to the point to live life on your own terms. Our coaching clients reliably do this in 7 years or less. To learn more, check out our coaching program at nextlevelincome.com/coaching. That's nextlevelincome.com/coaching.
Yeah, so that kind of leads me into number three, right? Is how do I
Yeah.
earn other streams of income that might
Yeah.
not be like, hey, I'm going to use that to like live off of, but it's going to be
Yeah.
something that I can grow generationally, right?
Yeah.
So I love the infinite banking policies.
Yeah.
I read Nelson Arn's book, and that like I got hooked, right? So I actually that's not my third level, right? Is after you've
Yeah.
got your W-2 income stabilized, and after you've got your portfolio
Yeah.
in stock markets or 401k stabilized, then you need to back all that up, right? Because you need to
Yeah.
protect your family and yourself,
That's
right?
right.
And how better to do that is to grow your wealth
Yeah.
consistently with a, whole life insurance policy, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
over policy, right? That where you can immediately take about 90% of it back out. So if it's established correctly, if you have a person you might know that knows how to engineer those correctly, like yourself, right?
Yeah.
You've overfunded, right? You paid up additions, you have to, turn back it and so
Yeah.
forth, right? But then you pull out that money, and that loan is actually cheaper than that even that securities back loan.
Yeah.
So that might have been like prime, right? Prime plus one maybe.
Yeah.
This one is like I think my latest one I took out is like
Yeah.
5.25%
Yeah. Five, six
interest.
percent. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah, I mean, we could spend a whole episode on that, and we certainly have. But yeah, if you want to learn more about that strategy, check out Next Level Income /banking, and you can watch a little webinar. But yeah, what you're talking about, Jeff, is the exact same strategy.
yeah.
And look, if you have a whole life policy, or you want to explore this strategy, reach out to us. You can send us a message. You send me a message directly, chris@nextlevelincome.com. We're happy to review your policies or explain how this works. But you can also watch that webinar. But yeah, I think because we were both in sales, Jeff, for a long period of time, I did the exact same thing. And I call this in my book, chapter 3, I call it our savings tax. So
Yeah.
what I would do is I set up these policies and I would sweep a pretty significant chunk of money every month into those policies, like a mortgage. And then it
Yeah.
acted as a few different things. One, like you said, Jeff, it provided that insurance for our family. Two, it provided a guaranteed return of about 4%. So that was our
Yep.
safe money that was there that we can then pull out if we needed to as an emergency fund. And I
Yep.
know a lot of investors, as you probably do too, Jeff, they say, hey, I'm saving 100 grand, 200
Yeah.
grand to put into this investment. And it's just sitting there earning, low single digits or zero. And it could be earning 5, 6% in these policies. I think a lot of people would be surprised that like our policies earn about 6% tax free on that cash value that's going in there. And then, like you said, you can actually borrow against the cash value and put it into something, which I know we're going to get into, something like private lending, which is another one
Yep.
of your income streams. So if you can
That's right.
borrow at 5 or 6% and lend it out at 10, 15% or higher, that's a massive arbitrage opportunity.
Oh, it's big time. Yeah, it's big
Yeah.
time. And one thing I also love about those policies is that it's compounding, right? So it's gonna like what is it? The eighth wonder of the world that Einstein said is like
Yeah.
compound interest, right? However you can
Yeah.
get some type of compound interest, that's the best thing you can do.
Yeah.
So as you pay into your policy, right? You're not
Yeah.
you're not investing into the policy, right? You're
Yeah.
storing your money in a policy, right?
Yeah.
For future use and also
Yeah.
to build up your death benefit for your
Yeah.
family too, if you, God
Yeah.
willing, pass.
Yeah. And
But
the last,
ultimately,
go ahead. Sorry.
no, so ultimately, that is a compounding effect, right? So that
Yeah.
guaranteed return happens every
Mhm.
single year. It grows, and as your
Yeah.
policy builds, that number just gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And I think my last one paid out over 6.5%
Yeah.
overall, right?
Yeah.
This past year. So I mean, I
Yeah.
love them. Yeah,
Yeah. And the final piece of that, and this is almost kind of the boring side of it.
yeah,
If you just say, "Hey, and you guys are talking arbitrage and these investments," and that's a little over my head. The life insurance policies, they originally were really a store of savings 100 years ago, but also
hmm,
they were most of our citizens, they use them in the United States as their primary source for retirement funding.
that's right.
And you actually get a guaranteed rate of return and you can get tax-free income in retirement. So a lot of people have heard me talk about this as our private pension. So it
That's
can
right.
be a very safe not only place to put your money today, a place to protect your family's future, but also a place for retirement income in the future for people like us that, didn't have a pension when we were working.
Yeah, and I keep saying it, but you've coined the next level. I think it is like the best way to talk about this, right? Because
Yeah.
it's as you get your policy and as you figure out how to use it and how it works, right? You can always level up, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
by leveling up, you take that loan against it,
Yeah.
right? And I'll get into the arbitrage in a second, but I want
Yeah.
to talk about more of like how you be your own bank, right? Because a lot of
Yeah.
people don't really like can't fathom this, right? But
Yeah.
when you go buy a car, right? You go
Yeah.
to a bank, right? And you say, "Hey, bank, I want to borrow $50,000, right? I'm going to give you, whatever it is, 6% interest on that loan,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm going to go buy a car, right?"
Mhm.
And then you go to the car dealership and you say, "Hey, here's my certified check from my bank. Thank you, cool." And I pay my bank a monthly payment. Usually, it's a 5-year principal and interest payment, right?
So you pay
So
yourself back.
so I pay
Yeah.
myself back. Yeah. So
Beautiful.
I did
Yeah.
this. I
Beautiful.
bought my wife a new car, right? I took the money out of the policy. I went to the
Yeah.
dealership and I said, "Hey, dealership, I'm buying this car all cash, baby." They're like, "You're
Yeah.
crazy." I'm like, I'm going to be making money on this money while my wife drives it and I'm going to have an asset that I'm going to pay
Love it.
off. But
Yeah.
you have to be disciplined about it. And the
Yes.
thing that a
Yeah.
lot of people don't realize, if you are paying that monthly note, right, to your
Yeah.
bank, you miss a payment, they're going to come after you, right?
Yep.
If you don't pay yourself back, right, you're not going to come after yourself, but you have to be disciplined enough to make sure you're paying that monthly payment. And I always match it to what I look at the rates online and I match it to whatever that rate is, right? And I say, and I always up it, I make it a whole percent because I'm anal like that. Like so, like six. So
Yeah.
if it's like 5.7, do 6%, right?
Yeah.
So I'll do 6%. I'll pay that back to myself, right? And then I'll
Yeah.
use that money to pay my loan off, right? And so as I'm paying my loan off with the insurance company, it's a simple interest. So the more I pay back, the less my interest grows, but I still pay that same amount. So I'm
Yeah.
actually making money in that policy, and I'm also earning an. I also have an asset now. After I pay that off, I own this car outright and I paid all the money back to my policy. It's kind of like a no-brainer, but people don't
Love
really
it.
get it sometimes. Yeah. I
You're
know we
gonna
can
you're
go
gonna
to
come you're
another
gonna come you're gonna come
45
work
minutes
for
for
me.
that.
We're gonna do a webinar together, Jeff. This is fantastic. Yeah, and
Let's do it.
it's the cool thing is so many different. It's so flexible, so many different things.
Yeah.
And again, it's kind of boring. It's insurance. It's kind of boring, but it's
Yeah.
so powerful. So let's get back to rounding out these seven here. Let's talk about some more exciting
Sure.
things. We talked a
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
bit about
Yeah.
private lending,
Yep.
and potentially using that. I know this is one of your seven streams, Jeff. Explain to the audience what private lending is for those that may not be familiar with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So private lending is just that. It's you lending your capital to a private person, right? Or a company or whatever it might
Hmm.
be,
Yeah.
that might not want to get a loan from a bank or they need quick to go buy a real estate,
Mhm.
go buy a rental property.
Yeah.
And that's what I do right there, right? So let me just kind of
Yeah.
I'll boil into the real estate side, right? So
Yeah.
I lend my capital, right, to another real estate investor who wants to go buy a short-term, like maybe they want to do a fix and flip, right?
Yeah, so
Or
let's say
maybe
I
they're doing
say,
a buy and hold.
hey Jeff,
Yeah.
I met you at the meetup. I hear you got money. You like to lend money out. I found this great house. Somebody's going to sell me for $250,000. I can put 50
Mm,
grand into it and I can sell it for $400,000. I can get it all done in 3 months.
perfect. Excellent. I'll give you
Yeah.
a loan. So we underwrite it. We make sure
Yeah.
obviously our loan to value is typically never no more than 65%.
Okay.
Right.
Sounds
So
great.
of
Yep.
the AR. So we underwrite it appropriately. We underwrite the person, make sure the
Mhm.
person has, some, good credit score. They don't
Yeah.
have to have perfect credit score. They don't
Yeah.
have to have, a lot of money in the bank, but they have to have enough to be able to cover the interest for
Yeah.
that 6 month loan.
Yeah.
Usually the 6 month loans, we'll do 12% and 3 points up front, right? So
Hmm.
kind of like traditional like a bank, but it's an interest only loan, right? So if you pay that off in 3 months, you pay it off in 3 months. There's no penalty to prepay it,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it gives the opportunity for that investor to say, hey, I'm going to buy the house with cash, right? It gets them quick close, right? I'm going to be able to
Yeah.
use some of that money to also fund the rehab, right? They already
Yep.
have the rehab set up, so we give them draws, right, in the
Yeah.
rehab, do some inspections and so forth. And then at the end, they're going to sell the property or they're going to refinance it into their own business, right, to rent it out. And then they're going to pay that loan back 100%, right? And then we
Love it.
take that capital and then we just recycle it into another deal.
Yeah. Love it.
And so by doing that, you can earn the 12, 10, 12, 13, 15%
Yeah.
interest only in
Yeah.
your capital's work. And your money is also in a first lien position. And that's
Yes.
the most
Yeah.
important thing. Like you don't
Yeah.
just
That's
lend it
very
to
important.
somebody.
Yeah.
Yep. Don't just lend it to somebody and say, yeah, I'll pay it back. Right. No, no,
Yeah.
no. We're going to title this. So we're gonna deed this into their name, and we're gonna put a promissory note or a mortgage on it with the title company. So you have to work with the title company and get them to draft the documents for you. I've got a partner that runs a hard money lending business, which is
Perfect.
basically the same.
Yeah.
So I actually invest capital investor in his hard money business,
Yeah.
right? And he pays me a monthly 10%.
That's
And it's
beautiful.
great. So I
Yeah.
don't do anything at all, and my money makes 10%, right?
Yeah.
So
And what's
beautiful.
beautiful is you can do this strategy. So if you say, hey, I know people, I know investors that are out there doing this, a family
Yep.
member, a friend, somebody that you trust and you understand this, you can go out and you can do this with cash. You can do it with the cash value in your life insurance policy. You can
Yep.
do it with a loan on your stock portfolio. You can even set up a
Yep.
self-directed IRA like my wife has and lend money out of that. And if you don't want to mess with that, we actually have a fund. We do this as well. We pay investors up to 10% as well, Jeff. You can check us out, go to our invest link on our website at nextlevelincome.com. So, all
That's
right, we're,
perfect.
we're
I
getting
love
we're
it.
getting
Love
into the home stretch here, Jeff.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
let's. What else do you have in terms of the magnificent seven streams of income you got going?
So it goes back into some real estate, right? So
Yeah,
again, I'm being a real estate investor. My portfolio is leaning a little more heavy on the real estate side, but that's why I
yeah,
like to hedge it with the stock market and
yeah,
401ks and my W-2 job. But
yeah,
um, I use my personal my single family rental portfolio as another
yeah.
stream. All right, so
Love it. Yeah,
I've got a handful of rental properties. It's actually very passive for me. I've got a property manager who manages them,
yeah.
collects the rents, and so forth. And so it's very hands off for me, and
Yeah.
it's a great passive income stream, right? So,
So those are
single family
single
rentals, yeah,
family. Do you have any short-term
yeah,
rentals as well in there?
I do. That's a second. That's another stream, right? So I have a
Oh,
short term rental as well, right? So
yeah.
that creates because it's to me it's a different asset class, right? It's a different
Agreed. Yeah.
business line of
Yeah.
business,
Yeah. Great
right?
point.
So because
It's run differently,
if
managed differently. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
the reason why I say seven streams, right,
Mhm.
is that I want to have a multiple different ways to be able to earn money. And if
Yes.
one kind of falls off, like if my short-term
Yeah.
rental doesn't pay a lot that month,
Yep.
right, I know my stock portfolio paid that month. If my stock
Yeah.
portfolio is not down a little bit, I know my
Yeah.
rental property is going to pay a little bit, right? So
Yeah.
it's
Hmm.
kind of arbitraging your own portfolio
Yeah.
or hedging your own portfolio. Make sure you have multiple different ways to do it. And being that a single family is different than a short-term rental,
Yeah.
then that's, for me, I count that as a different stream.
I agree. And, I wrote about this in my book. I talked about short-term rentals, which fall more into the hospitality business. It's definitely more active. I think a lot of people are like, oh, short-term rental, I
Yep.
can manage it myself. If you look at, I think one of the things you have to do as an investor, and Jeff, you just made a great point. You said, hey, I have somebody managing my residential portfolio for me. Um, One
Yeah.
of the things that I hear a lot of novice investors make, the mistake I hear is, hey, Chris, I'm getting a 30% return on my investment in my residential property. And I say, okay, what are you paying as a management fee? Oh, I don't pay a
Sure.
management fee. I manage it myself. So that's probably 10%. What is your vacancy allowance? Are you putting aside, say, 10% for vacancy? Oh, we don't have vacancies. That's
Ah, well,
I haven't had
you
vacancies
will.
yet. What about repairs? Oh, it's a new house. So, I think we have to look at residential and short-term rentals as a
Yeah.
business and look at those returns. If you want to actively manage them, you have the time to do that. That's fantastic. There's some phenomenal tax benefits, as you and I know.
Yep.
You can get into some short-term tax rental benefits. Just talking to an investor yesterday. He has his wife manage that. Terrific benefits. You can
Yep.
check out some of those on past podcasts, or shoot me a message, Chris at Next Level Income, and I can share a little bit more about that. But we're not done yet, Jeff. We got a couple more to go
No,
still.
no, no.
Yeah.
We're gonna go. So I think we've covered six of them, right?
Yeah.
And again, we can dive in, and I'm gonna be able to dive in all of these on my ebook, right? So if anyone wants to get my
Awesome.
ebook, we'll have the link at the end, but it's gonna be
Beautiful.
valoriscapitalpartners.com/next level. And someone will be able to download this and be able to read through it. And I've tips in there, some pro tips and how to get started in it. But ultimately, my last one, right, which is
Yeah.
the to me the most passionate one right now, is investing passively in real estate syndications, right, or
Love
in a
it. Yeah.
multifamily rental, right?
Yeah.
So there's there's certain obviously criteria someone has to meet. If you're
Yeah.
an accredited investor, you can invest in certain deals. If you're not an accredited investor, you have to know,
Yeah.
like, you have to know the sponsor you're investing in. But ultimately, what it
Absolutely.
does is it provides a very good passive income where you, the investor, don't have to manage. You don't have to worry about the tenants, the toilets, the trash,
Yeah.
termites, any of those.
Yeah.
And you can sit back and you earn mailbox money. So let us do all
Yeah.
the hard work. I've got a whole team behind me that does the asset management, that does the financial management, that does the property management, does all the construction. So we're vertically integrated. And we have a strong portfolio of value add properties. So existing properties that are kind of like I mentioned earlier when I went and I bought that property at an auction, right? Same thing. We're not buying at auctions, but we're buying it from the sellers directly or through brokers, but
Yeah.
we're buying the ugly duckling on the street, right? And we're
Yeah.
going to in a great neighborhood, and then we're going to fix it up, create it, make it a beautiful place for residents to live, and then be able to make sure that the occupancy level goes up. We're going to drive the net operating income, lower the expenses, and create massive value for our investors
Massive
to
value.
be able to reap the benefits
Yeah.
of that. And as
Yeah.
a syndication, I know your bunch of your listeners know about this, but if somebody does not know about it, they can contact me at valoriscapitalpartners.com /Jeff, and you can kind of get an idea of what we do. But it provides a really good passive stream for people to collect that mailbox money.
Absolutely.
So we're
You,
also, and everything I talk about too, there's always different levels of it, right? So the
that's
first one
right.
would be, investing into that. Then there's a different, you can diversify within each of these different streams, right? For
Yep.
multiple different incomes inside that stream, right? So you can almost create a 7 times 7 stream, right? By doing different
Yeah.
things inside of it, right? Um,
Well, and
and that's why
one of the
yeah,
yeah, one of the big things, Jeff, is first off, we love value add real estate here.
yeah,
But one of the things is that all of these seven streams that you mentioned, Jeff, can interact with each other, and a
hmm
passive investor in one of your deals can actually enhance their returns in their own residential portfolio. So when you start to mix the tax strategies with the
oh yeah,
investments and also with the vehicle. So maybe it makes more sense to do private lending in your self-directed IRA, but it makes
yep,
sense to invest outside of your IRA in
yeah,
your residential and your commercial real estate. And you can cancel out and end up, this is how the ultra rich end up paying very little tax. The life
sure,
insurance has that, the real estate has that. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. Before we wrap up today, Jeff, I know you already mentioned it,
yeah,
but let's just recap. We're also going to have this in the show notes. You got a great resource you're giving out to investors today with your new ebook. Where can they find that again?
yep. Yeah, so you go to our website, it's
Yeah.
www.valoriscapitalpartners. It's VALORIS Capital Partners with an S, .com /next level. right? And there you'll be able to download our book, kind of see what I do for my own portfolio and how I've created 7 streams. Now you can modify it yourself, or if you want questions or you want to dive into it, on that website is also a way to contact me, schedule a meeting. I'm always available for people to talk to, and ask questions. And I love explaining. I love adding value to anybody that it won't listen, right? So yeah, so I love it.
Absolutely. Jeff, you've been a phenomenal resource to the audience today. It's great catching up with you. Check it out, valoriscapitalpartners.com/next level. And you can add another stream of these 7 streams to your income in the new year. Jeff, thanks so much. Great to see you.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.
Hey, Chris here again. I hope you found this episode valuable. Now, I have one more thing to gift you. We have a page for my coaching clients where you can get a free copy of my book, as well as much more from previous guests on the show. Just check out nextlevelincome.com/coaching to get a free copy of my book, audiobook, and much more. I'll send you a copy of my book and cover all the shipping costs as a thank you for listening to the podcast. Also, please like, share, and take just 90 seconds to give us a rating on Apple Podcasts.